Welcome back to the LEC studio. We're gearing up for a rematch of the spring finals as reigning champion Mad Lions go up against the current best team in Europe, Rogue. And now our question for the LEC fans is quite simple. Will Rogue win the LEC title in summer? You can spam yes or no in chat to cast your vote. But as we get into this one, I gotta know, what are you guys voting?
It's hard to say because, you know, it was similar to last bit. It was similar to summer as well, where Rogue are like the kings of the best of one, always high up in the standings in the regular season. But in best of fives, it's just a different beast to me. Best of fives are just so much different to the regular season, where you play best of one, you've got a day to rest and prepare, whereas a best of five, you're on the fly. This doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work, this works, right? So it's a lot different.
I put my answer in chat, so they know.
Okay, well, what was your answer?
Yeah, that's not helpful.
It was yes.
I think the struggle is that we were casting that final, right, the last time that we saw these teams, and we were there when it looked like there was no way at all that Rogue could lose. Mad Lions very rapidly proved us wrong in an incredible turnaround.
Because a lot of factors come in. Not only is it like the draft and the way you're playing the game, it's also the mental side of things, right? The fortitude, Rogue 2-0 up, get reverse sweep. The heights start to swing despite Rogue being ahead in these games. They just kind of blundered towards the mid to late game.
But of course, Rogue do look like the heavy favorites after a dominating win versus Fnatic. I know we talked about it at the start of the day, but again, I think just an impressive performance across the board. Christy.
Oh, absolutely. And their playstyle is one that absolutely punishes mistakes that you make. And Fnatic made a couple of errors early on. Rogue are not going to let up off of that early pressure, and they were able to outplay Fnatic throughout the game. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit concerned for Mad Lions, because Mad Lions have made so many mistakes in recent weeks early on too, that Rogue are in a position where in these best of ones, they're just going to drown you out of the game. Inspired was an absolute madman on that Xin Zhao yesterday, and it didn't really feel like Fnatic had many options to fight back against Rogue with the way they played.
Yeah, and I think when I look at Rogue, the biggest mistake, or I would say mistake, the biggest issue I feel like they had in the early stages of the split was in the mid lane. I think Larssen was playing things like Lucian and Jayce, but he just looked a little bit off when it was like in a zero Orianna kind of control mage meta. He looked on point. This meta, I think he played the champions well, but it didn't feel like Rogue of old. But now Larssen's going back to these TFs, the Oriannas and stuff like this. So I feel like when he's on those champions, it's hard to find fault in the individual play of Rogue. And then the team play has just been exceptional the whole split long. Of course, they have been dropping the ball here and there, but if they don't, and it's on them to be the ones to drop that ball in the first place, they don't make mistakes, I feel like they're in the driving seat in every single game almost.
And we're having two split discussions here. How will Rogue fare versus Mad, and can Rogue take the title? Can Rogue take the trophy? Let's check in on that vote. Right now, it's looking like a fat no. The fans are not believing in the Rogue hype. I mean, to be fair, if you're a fan, you've been here before. Rogue winning in the regular season is something you have seen a lot. Rogue lifting a trophy, very different sight.
No trophies. They've never lifted a trophy, but Mad Lions have. And I think that came down to best of fives. It came down to besting G2, besting Rogue in those best of fives. And we just talked about it. Best of fives are different beasts. Mad Lions, I want to see them level it up for playoffs. Obviously, right now, they look pretty weak. Of the top 4 teams we consider in Europe, Mad Lions do look like the weakest one, despite being the spring champions. And that's why I have a lot of questions around them. Yes, you won spring. Summer, definitely more important, because going towards Worlds, you need the points, you need to make sure you make it to Worlds, you need to make sure maybe you want to lift back-to-back trophies, you know, for the first time in European history for a different team. It's not G2 and Fnatic, right? So I think that they're a step behind the teams like Rogue right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most teams are. It's a bit different to spring, where I felt like a lot of those teams at the top were very close. You know, don't forget, like G2 finished the regular season at the top. Mad Lions.
What is going on?
Whatever gets them in the mood, you know, whatever gets them focused and ready for the game, guys. But Mad Lions last regular season, you know, they were not the best team in those best of ones. They really did show up towards playoffs. This time around, though, what I'm trying to get at is that Rogue feel a little bit less contested towards the top. You know, Fnatic were the best bet that I felt like had a chance to take them down, and then they just looked terrible against Rogue yesterday. The gap looked very large, so I have a lot more faith in Rogue going into the postseason this time around.
I think it's absolutely fair, especially, as you said, taking into context a lot of the other top teams that have also been struggling. It really was just Fnatic that we looked at to be the team that was also performing so well across the entire split to take them down, and after such a one-sided matchup, hard to count Rogue out. Now, they're already locked for playoffs, and I do think that there is, certainly on the opposite side for Mad Lions, again, the need to progress. And that's going to be a story that we talk about with so many of these top teams, because, again, Rogue looks so clean. Rogue looks like they have it figured out. But it feels like for every other team, there is a lot of growth left to be done.
Yeah, I feel like each team has their own problem. Mad Lions definitely a step behind the teams. Teams like G2 are struggling to find what works for them. I think they're starting to experiment, and we'll talk about that later on in the day. Fnatic, obviously, growing pains at the start of the split. Rogue, the mid game, we talked about it. But Mad Lions, just going back to them, I feel like the biggest problem that they were having is just adapting to the meta that was in front of them, because they were always one step behind from MSI, from taking those scrim days off, you know. So you have to find the stage performance and the scrim performance to back that up. Maybe put a little bit extra time in now that you've had a bit of a, I won't say longer break, but taking it slow at the start of the split and then slowly ramp it up, which they have been doing. And like Ender said, Mad Lions, not the strongest best of 1 team, but they are a beast in a best of 5.
It is those fights, right, really, where they did shine. And I feel like that's what I want to see a little bit more of, you know, in that BO5 against Rogue. We've said it before, like that last game was not theirs to win. You know, they fell so far behind, but it was through really creative fighting, really excellent flanking, all this stuff. They were able to come away with the victory. So it's not like this team has to, you know, beat Rogue in the early game. We know that if they're able to get back to that team fight form, they're able to contest in the later stages of the game. I want to see that. I want to see Elyoya come back to him, because he was a guy that was the number 2 jungler in the league, right behind Inspired in spring, and it hasn't quite felt like that either. So for Mad Lions, they definitely need to return to that previous form.
Have to see if they can do it, because right now Rogue are the top dogs of the LEC, but you can never count out a team like Mad Lions, who have beaten the odds time and time again. Let's send it over to Quickshot and Doveberg for the call.
What? That was actually the cleanest of the day, because it was intentional trolling. Welcome back to the Caster Desk, joined by Guldborg ahead of Rogue versus Mad Lions. And something that the analyst desk said, which really struck a nerve with me, is how both teams kind of have different expectations right now. Mad Lions have to prove that they belong, that they're up at the top. Rogue, after yesterday's performance, they are. Now, one of the things I want to kind of flip and invert on that is that both of these teams' last 3 games are so drastically different. Rogue goes on to play Vitality, XL, and SK. Do you want to know who Mad Lions play, Guldborg?
Go on.
Fnatic, G2, and Misfits. So that idea of how good are Mad Lions right now, what can we expect from playoffs? Super week, next week, 3 days, we'll get a lot to look at.
That is going to prove the strength of this team, especially, you know, this is a rematch of the spring finals, but when you take a look at that now, the difference both teams have had in regular season now is immense. So for Mad Lions, it's about coming back to that form. We've seen in interviews as well with Carzzy he recently had. Even now, they're still trying to take it chill so they won't get any burnouts, but as soon as they hit playoffs, which they have now locked, that is when they go full aggressive again. That is when they get back on track, at least if you ask themselves.
I mean, that is the case. And the thing is, when I do think of the organization, Mad Lions are one of the teams that I truly believe you can see their prep, their research, their understanding of their opponents. And when we look at sort of decision-making in game, especially with Elyoya and how he decides to move around the map, when you look at drafting, it has been a strength for the organization, but it hasn't exactly stood up in recent weeks. Obviously, if you are watching at home, we do have a brief delay before draft. Players are just quickly rebooting and getting themselves back into the lobby. And I want to bring a little bit more recent that the last time Rogue and Mad Lions faced, it was a 41-minute game that Rogue eventually won out. It was hard fought, it was close, and ultimately it was Larssen that came out superior.
That's the thing, and this time around, I don't think we'll be having the same kind of scenario. I think this time around, it's going to be a lot of what we've already seen today about this early priority, about this early aggression, and you said his name yourself, Elyoya versus Inspired is going to be pivotal. Humanoid versus Larssen, finding these pressure in lanes to play for the junglers to get them ahead, because that is still very much what we have in this meta.
I mean, especially when you look at what Inspired did yesterday.
Oh, my lord.
Right. Now, if anybody does, you know, have any bad feelings or memories, the last time Inspired played against Mad Lions, he went 3-0-14 on that volley bear and dismantled the Mad Lions. Now, I can see the players start to jump into the lobby. Guldborg, I'm going to turn towards you now and say, what sort of approach to the draft would you like to see? Which players do you think will be prioritized, as Rogue will be on the blue side?
Yeah, I definitely think Rogue is the team coming in with most flexibility. I think Summer, just in laning phase, has a bit more of that extra with the Kalista that we have already seen. Carzzy can do the same, but for the most part from that we've seen from him, it's more towards that mid to late game. So what I'm expecting from Mad Lions is actually do what they've done done recently, get Armut on something where he can actually take control into his own hands. We saw him in Gwen yesterday as well. I want to see them play for the top side. I want to see them use the pressure Humanoid gets in the mid lane. So priority pick for Humanoid, some of the best laning stats we have in the entire league. Throw that priority to the jungler and have an influence on the rest of the map. Now, if you do decide that Armut is going to be the weak side, that is fine. But to me, the most pivotal part of Mad Lions is going to be that mid-jungle duo.
Well, definitely the case. I'm thinking about that Twisted Fate as well, whether or not that might be something that shows up a little bit today. Obviously, this pause or extended delay, I will be trying to get you an update as quickly as I can. I think that Humanoid as a player was someone that featured a lot in some of the discussions over the last few weeks, and is one of the players that has cleaned up, has been one of the most reliable and consistent on the Mad Lions. And I think when you look over at Rogue, almost every single one of the players on different weeks has been able to step up and carry, has been able to have their influence on the game, and it has just been a beauty to watch.
That is why that team is so scary.
Yeah.
Because they have the flexibility of doing that. You want to play for Odoamne, he can be a weak side king, but you can also play for him, even with worsened stats apparently, but at the same time, he's still that carry that we see. Larssen in the mid lane, someone you can prioritize. And, you know, a funny thing I was looking through when I was looking at the priority picks and just stats in general of these guys, Larssen's kill participation is very low, but at the same time, Rogue's bot lane is holding the record for most 2v2 kills. So it's not only because he's not always part of the play, it's also just due to the fact that Rogue just get kills on other parts of the map without the help of others.
It is the case, but also remember how Rogue approaches their early game. It is so controlled and calculated and planned. Yesterday, I think Medivedi were talking during the Rogue Fnatic game around how Rogue get their advantages through, you know, CSing, through playing the lanes, through getting early objectives, whereas Fnatic do a little bit more for those kills,
Yes.
right? It's a different style, but you also can't underestimate how good Rogue are at team fights. And I actually said to Hansama in PGL yesterday, you know, do you feel that you're a little underrated? You know, what do you think about that? And he's like, I like it. I actually prefer that way because there's a little less pressure on you when you're playing.
To me, it's mind-blowing. Rogue is still underrated. I think they're by far the best regular team we have. And I think they've also proven that with the success they've had recently. And I think they're going to be proving that today, at least making this one a bit close. But you say team fighting as well, Trevor. And when you say team fighting, you cannot leave Mad Lions out. And I know to some that this has probably been reiterated too many times. But when I'm looking at a team that is 5k gold down and is still able to crawl their way back through creative team fighting, that's when I start to get hyped. And that's why I can still see any leverage for Mad Lions in this game.
It is time to get to draft. Rogue taking on Mad Lions. Two very different expectations. For Rogue, it's about staying at the top, and they've got a relatively easy ride to playoffs. For Mad Lions, especially next week. How good can they be? Can they silence some of the naysayers? Honestly, do they even need to? If you save all the best for playoffs, a lot of questions will start to answer as we start to advance forward. Now, Rogue, on the blue side, we'll be starting off the draft. We've talked a lot, obviously, in the last few minutes about Larssen and Humanoid, especially as well, looking at the impact that junglers can have with Inspired and Elyoya. What would you like to see, and do you think Gwen will even make it through the draft?
Yeah, this one's a banger already with the sound, but yeah, through the draft here, I think you need to get the casual red side bans to come out here, perhaps even Kalista if you don't want Hansama to get there, or even play through that. But Thresh, obviously a champion that will have to go off the table. Viego is something we still have to see, but Inspired Sinsao, after yesterday, I feel like that is something you 100% have to respect. And you know what? I'm going to take that back because it's actually Rogue who's saying that's not a priority and we don't want you to second pick this.
The question is, what is the priority then? If they take that one out of the pool, denying it from Elyoya, who has not played a single Xin this summer, and Lions taking their time, Dr. Mundo will find himself in the ban pool. Champion that's rising in popularity. Viego is still up. And now banned away. That means Gwen is the last thought on my mind.
Thresh. It's one of the best supports you can have in this meta right now. Super good for any of the mobile AD carries, like the Varus, even like the Aphelios as well, which is the infamous lane. So there is a lot of power picks that either you just overload this draft, or you say, all right, we ban the Thresh, we give over the Gwen.
Exceptional read there. Thresh was banned away. Neither Kaiser nor Trymbi have played a game of Thresh this summer. And with a number of picks open, I think, honestly, teams can go several directions with the draft, but Lucian being available, being there for Larssen. He's played it 4 times this summer, won all 4 games, and will be the first pick for Rogue.
Yeah, it definitely will be. So that's going to be a lot of that pressure we talk about in the early game. We've already discussed a bit of Twisted Fate early as well, so maybe later down the road that is something we can look into. But Mad Lions, they lock in the AD carry. I'm looking for that jungle priority pick as well. With Sensao out of the way, there's still the early skirmishes like the Volibear if you want to commit to a full early game jungle style. Try to get the vision down on your opponent. It's something Rogue are insanely good at, scouting out the opposition to make inspired lives easier. I want to see them be able to do the same with Elyoya on Mad Lion's part, but they're going to lock in the Lucian as a counter pick.
Oh, okay. So that will be the Viktor into the Lucian in the mid lane. Small correction, of course, Gwen is still open and available. Carzzy will get his hands on the Varus in the bottom lane. Has only played that once this summer. Junglers will be very interesting to see what happens. Inspired has got a couple of those AP picks under his belt. I think Fiddlesticks being one of the most impressive. Kalista landing in Hans Sommer's hands. Not a big surprise. What support do they want to pair with it? Oh, Diana's open that we haven't noticed either. We saw in the previous game. So there's so many champions you can pick right now. It's really up to the teams on what they want.
If you don't go for the support now, the support pool will be trimmed a little bit. So if you want to grab the Leona, the Nautilus, it's up to you to do it now. But otherwise than that, the Diana, as you mentioned, I think that's going to be the call.
Will indeed be locked in. So that's going to be the same 3 as our previous game. Great combination already. You would assume Trymbi's champion pool is going to get hit a little bit. And of course, wonder what Odoamne will want to play in the top lane. Mad Lions, what options do they have?
I feel like you go for a jungler here because when you head into the second ban phase, if Rogue starts banning out supports that they miss on Mad Lions, well, then they're banning out themselves as well because they haven't picked a support in just yet. But seems like they're going to go for this route instead. That will mean Rogue gets to ban out some of the junglers. They'll get to ban out some of the top laners if that's where they feel the priority will lie. And on the side of Mad Lions, they can try and get away some of these strong Kalista pairings like the Leona, like the Nautilus, and hell, even like the Set if that's what they're looking for.
Man, there's just so many different directions you can take this. And inspired yesterday on the Xin, that proactive, that like engaged style jungler. Now he's got one that you could argue maybe more powerful in some ways. Mad Lion's first ban is going to be the Gragas, removing that from the pool. And also we got no direction yet on what Odo or Armut are going to play in this regard.
Yeah, I'm also looking for the side of Mad Lions with the composition they already have. They're playing around with a lot of ground. The Varus poke to come through, the Viktor laser to keep your enemy at bay. So in the jungle, yeah, you can go for something that would accelerate it like the Volibear that was just banned away, but you could also get something that creates a bit more space and helps facilitate this kind of playstyle you have already drafted for yourself with some disengage perhaps, if that's what you're looking for. On the side of Rogue though, with Diana locked in, you know they're looking for an AD top laner. You know they're looking for something to be perhaps just weak side with now that I'm reading into it, because Kalista obviously will demand a lot of resources.
Yeah, she will. Nautilus will not be allowed to go through. Do you have any ideas of what types of champions could fit the bill there? You see Larssen is still open and available if anybody wanted to pick it. Jayce as well. Gwen. Both Rogue and Mad Lions really taking their time throughout this draft. Larssen will be one of those champions banned away. And I always try to understand where you're going with this, whether it's a surprise, whether it's something you weren't anticipating. But so far, it's going to be Mad Lions now. First pick, either going to be this jungler or top lane.
Yeah, I mean, you could even flex the Sejuani here if that's what you wanted to. That'd be absolutely crazy. I'm not expecting that one to come through. But I think you go for a jungler here and save that last pick from Armut. And we've already seen one Trundle today by Mr. Sansara himself. Looks like Elyoya is going to be on this early skirmishing jungler himself this time around to give them some extra brawling potential that we have already talked about. it is good into Diana in the early game, but as soon as Diana hits 6, that's when she starts to ramp up.
And it just leans more into that zone control you were talking about. The Pillar of Ice is going to be so frustrating for both AD carries. We'll be able to use with that gravity field as well, and maybe give Mad Lions the space or the time to find whatever engages they want. There will be a Tahm Kench locked in for Rogue. Will they throw that top or not? I see your hands
I feel like
together.
they're baiting us. I feel like they're baiting us, but this has popped up a lot in Korea as well, where you just go full health, just go armor in the runes and just some attack speed, and then you're good to go, basically unkillable. As a blind though, I think it can still be punished, but Trevor, they're going for it.
That is going to be a Tahm Kench top lane for Odoamne. I'm going to check with my stats team whether or not he's ever played that one. While I do, what is the last pick here for Mad Lions?
I mean, the ranged matchups into the Tahm Kench is usually what you would like, so I don't know if they can go for that one yet, but Jayce, as we've already talked about, is up into this one, and that would make it a bit easier, but if there's kill potential, I'm not too sure. We might need some more jungle attention up towards that side, but in general, Mad Lions composition, when you look at it, you look at those carry champions and you decide they need items before they can start being proactive. On the other side of Rogue though, Larssen on the Lucian and Summer on towards the Kalista, and with Trymbi to facilitate that, there are reasons for you to be aggressive in the early game here. Wait for Inspired to become 6 and then pull the trigger, because Mad Lions, they need a bit more scaling aspect in this one.
To buy some time. And I also think when you visualize how those team fights will play out, I also feel like the team fights will need some time. You want the Chain of Corruptions, you want the poke from Varus and Jayce. And will there be enough engage from Rogue to get through all of that zone control, all of that potential poke? We even have a different style of team composition as we're loading onto the Rift. Early game, do you think there'll be anybody that can get an advantage?
It definitely be Rogue. You talk early game, you talk that composition. On the side of Mad Lions, it's definitely the extended team fight you're looking for.
Yeah, I just realized in my excitement, you mentioned that just a moment before. This is, of course, a rematch of the Spring Finals. It is also Mad Lions looking for revenge on Rogue, and is Mad Lions starting their campaign to playoffs against the top of the table teams. Let's hit the Rift. Straight out of the gate. Summer, Trymbi and Larssen standing tall in the top lane. And is this actually going to happen? A lane swap.
So this is what they do. They throw their jungler and the top laner in towards an early invade to pretend that more people are coming, to try and bait Armut into ward. This is like such an old strategy that was used in scrims for so long. And yeah, this time around, Armut just not falling for it. I do think it actually originated from Turkey as well, doing scrims with a lot of their teams. So Armut, you know, being molded by this strategy.
I am so glad that you are here to save me, because I see a top lane Tahm Kench, a champion that has not been played since 2016 summer. Would you like to know what Odoamne's record was that summer on Tahm Kench? A little quick stat for you: 1 win, 1 loss. And that year, we saw a total of 9 TK top lanes. So this should be the 10th. It is going to be that teleport. It is going to be the Ghost. And I don't care if it's interesting or exciting. I'm excited. I like to see what Odo can do on that champion.
Yeah, so you're saying that matchup is just going to be decided by the toss of a coin with that 50-50 stats is what I'm hearing into this one. But, I mean, it is a very annoying lane to play against with Tahm Kench, especially if you are melee. Luckily this time around, Armut on the range aggressor is going to have an easier time with this, but Tahm Kench is actually one of these champions that has really good setup, and when you take a look at his runes as well, Trevor, you'll notice that he does not have flash. He's got Ghost. So that is a TP Ghost Tahm Kench up towards the top side as well to try and run down the opponents, get that Devour passive stacked, and then just gobble them up. Remember, he can eat champions by hitting his Q now, as if you have your full stats on it.
Now, of course, let's break that down for a brief moment because Tahm Kench did have a mini rework a couple patches ago, and that flashless summoner spell in my play-by-play brain is not surprising because of the Abyssal Voyage. That W gives you the ability to kind of blink, quote-unquote, right? But how is that going to work in a solo lane? I can totally understand how stacking up your Devour, getting a chomp onto an enemy, and then having Diana jump into the fray is going to work out.
Your base damage is honestly insane after the buff that came through again, where your passive with how much HP you have deals magic damage because of that when you hit them. It also procs in your Q now. Like there's a lot of stuff on Tahm Kench that are making you able to run champions down. And even in Korea, like a lot of like these solo queue montages has already come out with Tahm Kench in the top lane with Ignite, where he's just completely destroying people in the top lane.
Well, can he destroy Armut's Jayce today? For the time being, Armut a very small advantage you would anticipate in the early levels, being able to push that wave out. A lot of sustain in Odo's kit already. Larssen pushing heavily in the mid lane again, as you would anticipate. In the race to level 2, one out by Rogue in the bottom lane. So they're pushing forward as well. Overall, feels like an advantage here for Rogue, but again, kind of expected based on draft.
Yeah, it is expected, and you can also see the adaptation the junglers are immediately making with this one. While Elyoya started topside, he's still only clearing his jungle, only to go back up towards the top side again, because he's just not going to be having the priority from the bot side to actually contest any of these drakes. Where you look onto Armut now on the Jayce against the Tahm Kench, that's where you have the priority, that's where you have something to play for.
Yeah, have some tools to work with. Odoamne always been the recipient of a lot of attention from his enemies. Inspired will do that first full clear, make his way towards the river. Bottom lane pushed very far forward. So we've got a very quick moment. Just a reminder of the all-time head-to-head between these two teams. 11 wins, 8 losses in favor of Rogue. Of course, Rogue were denied that final. They lost that final in a dramatic reverse sweep. Very, very exciting final. And Rogue want to avenge it. This is that play you were talking about just a moment ago. If Elyoya wanted to, but not enough minions, not enough pressure just yet.
It's also just the fact that I don't think you dive at Tahm Kench. With that thick skin he's got coming up there, it's just super tough. It's basically like having to dive a champion twice and making sure you're not dying at the same time. So for both junglers, while this will be a bit stale in the early game, it's just going to be about full clearing again. Now, when you hit that point of attack as Rogue, that's when you hit the level 6. That's when you can start playing around the bot lane, trying to attack Carzzy on this Varus that's very immobile. He's paired up with the Alistar, which is great for the engage, but not so much when people are attacking you on multiple fronts rather than just one.
Yeah, so you're going to be able to have potentially Inspired and Larssen dashing around. I think that Pillar of Ice from Elyoya is going to be very, very impactful. And if we are going to have just a little bit of time before we get to that level 6 from Inspired, where I think you really want to see some level of engages coming out. Let's talk about this matchup. Larssen on the Lucian, Humanoid opting the Viktor into it. You mentioned during draft that Humanoid's laning stats and his performance are fantastic. Look at this kill participation, gold difference at 10, his XP difference as well. So really comes out the gate swinging every game.
And that's the thing, and that pressure, that's great for mid laners in this meta, but it's not essentially so much for themselves, it's for your junglers instead. Because you're only really as good as a jungler as your laners are. If all your lanes are losing, there's not much to play for. So this pressure that Humanoid will be able to excel, we need to see that point onto Elyoya, especially if he's on a champion like Trundle that likes to come in and create some disruption. But Inspired level 5, close to be hitting that level 6, down towards this bottom lane. This could get dangerous for Matt Lyons.
Trymbi's looking for the flight, gets the knock up for now. Kaiser flashes early already, Hunt Summer chases as well. Couple of Ren stacks available with the Crescent Strike. Everything hit, that was beautiful.
It really was beautiful, and it also came from Inspired that dashed on towards a minion or whatever it was, finished the Crescent Strike, and then it was in the Rend Rage. Absolutely beautiful done by Rogue here to pick up the first blood, and it came once again for the bot lane.
Yeah, it really did. Hans Sama gets the kill secured. Inspired, Hans, Trymbi, all throwing their flashes forward. That is exactly what Rogue wants to see. As all of a sudden now, Chaos Storm comes down the mid lane. Larssen just push backwards. They're dead, even on CS. A small advantage in the top lane, but very, very well executed by Inspired. But it was the setup, the engage from Trymbi that really allowed him the time.
Yeah, but here's the response back. Remember we talked about how diving at some Kench is like 2 people? Now they're putting Kaiser up as well to get that third man, but Seems like even then, and with the rotations coming through, because they actually have ping downs on towards Trymbi now, they need to back up. So while the point of attack came out from Mad Lions there, it was a quick read from the side of Rogue to quickly detergent that play. And now they're just going to move back towards the bottom side again. Now we're still waiting for Inspired to hit that 6, and they can go for the return gank, because while Trymbi and Hansama lost their flashes, they're still very mobile champions, especially when Hansama gets the Faith's call, because then he could just throw Trymbi in there, Inspired will be there to follow up, and once again, no flashes on Carzzy and Kaiser.
I mean, when you think of the power of that engage between Diana's entire kit, then you have Rakan's entire kit, and you've then got the engage, re-engage, disengage, all options button from Fate's Call, exactly like you talked about. Mad Lions, while they do have a lot of tools to disengage, you know, in the Trundle, in the Viktor, they also have so many different abilities to dodge, dip, duck, and dive from. So can they execute well enough? Can they survive long enough to get there? Elyoya's going to make a small play towards this top lane. I think he's spotted out by a ward there. Odoamne immediately start to back out, and no real threat. I don't know if they had enough damage really at this stage. Look at the huge burst onto Carzzy already, down to 210. Hansama, if he finds the Q through the minions, that could have been enough to rend, but not this time.
Yeah, luckily they have the vision around bot to know that Inspired is not going to be around, but he is still very low. And when he's going to be picking up this wave, Faith's Call have just been secured, so if they want to jockle the wave pressure a bit, they are able to do so, but it looks like Rogue, they don't want to risk anything. There's wards behind them, so now nobody can TP behind them.
Yeah, nobody can TP, that's great. Kaiser will look for the knockup onto Trymbi. Able to fly back towards Hansama. Some chip damage on the tower, nearly 15 CS advantage for Hansama's Kalista. 1,000 gold lead for Rogue overall. This is looking like a very Rogue-styled early game. They are calculated, their plan executes well, and they get the gold to the right players.
But you also have to realize from Mad Lions, the win condition here right now is that you stall out the game. You want to make this game as slow as possible, because you need 2 items on the Viktor, you need 2 items on Carzzy and on Armut to really get the full potential of your composition here. So if you're able to make sure Rogue is not going to get too many objectives in the early game, they don't get the dragon stacking going from the get-go, that's a win for you. You just need to be even, you need to make sure that when you get those 2 items, that's when you start being aggressive.
So the question that I always ask is, at what point is the lead too great? You know, 1,000 at 10 minutes feels very impactful, and it obviously is. But let's not discount the fact that Larssen has been locked in this mid lane. Humanoid is chucking out that ultimate on cooldown. Also now it appears Mad Lions may be able to pick up this first dragon. So as you mentioned, you know, Mad Lions do have the tools to stall out, but they cannot bleed or concede too much.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it at like 3k. It's usually around 1 item extra from the opposing enemy team, where you're like, okay, this is becoming really hard to play, and to buy yourself even more time. It's actually Mad Lions that picked up the first dragon, while on the other side, Inspired did get that Rift Herald. So the next play to be made on the map will be on Rogue, to see where do we put this play. Is it once again for Hansama or Trymbi? Is it up towards the top side of the map? I doubt it. So I'm expecting it to be once again about the bot-centric part of Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mad Lions do have 2 teleports available to them as well. And as we continue to just farm up the lane, we are going to set ourselves up some very interesting skirmishes and team fights. What role is Odoamne's Tahm Kench going to play during the team fight? Do you want to see him aggressively devouring enemies, or playing a little bit more peel when you look at this composition? How do you want to see it play out?
I think it's definitely about peel. It's just super hard for you to get your passive down on champions that play from so far away, like the Varus and like the Viktor. But now with pink ward inborn, with mid lane priority, they are going to try and go for this little bot lane play.
Kaiser, I wondered if he's calling for teleports or not. He stepped very far forward. We're going to start backing out. Remember, Larssen's losing some minions in that mid wave. Humanoid will be able to step forward. Elyoya's nearby. The Pillar of Ice comes up, and Filth this time around. All of a sudden, Trymbi and Hansama are on the hunt. Mad Lions playing respectful enough to not allow the dive, but they did lose a plate.
Yeah, but they played it exactly as they should on the side of Mad Lions here. It's the fact that they were exactly as far forward as they could be. Kaiser there with the ultimate available with double TP knew, I can just step up here. If you overcommit, we're not going to be the team with the punish.
Yeah, they absolutely would be. And Mad Lions are actually a team that have done this so many times this summer. XL, when they played Draven in the bot lane, kept going bot. Gank after gank after gank, trying to gank in between towers actually multiple times. Carzzy and Kaiser just respected, backed away, acknowledged the loss for now, and you can see it in CS. Carzzy's down in 20 for the time being. But it has allowed Humanoid to farm up, and we know the impact that a Humanoid Q slap can have in the middle of the late game.
Now they're coming in with a new strategy, Rogue, though. They have the tempo advantage. They had the reset first. They had a hard time going for a Rift Herald play towards the bottom lane when it was a 2v2. But now they're moving Hansama up towards the top side of the map, and that is going to force a response from the side of Rogue. But their response is going to be delayed. So because of one rotation here from Rogue, they're actually just going to lose one wave. It's not much, but it's something you get out of these tempo priorities you can play for. Trymbi needs to be a bit careful here, though.
He's got the flash available as well as the quickness. As long as Mad Lions are chasing him, it may allow some damage onto this mid tower. Where is Inspired for now? That Rift Herald's going to start to time out very, very soon. Humanoid's backing from the mid lane, and now he's moved to those Australia lanes. Rogue will walk straight over a ward. Mad Lions fully aware of it. That's a red ping from Humanoid. He's holding on for now. I don't know if they fancy themselves the engage. Kaiser's got that ultimate available to him, stepping forward. As Rift Herald is summoned, here comes Humanoid, here comes Armut as well. There's a double TP. Inspire not quite ready for it, no support for him. He flashes over the wall to run for his life. Odoamne's in the fray too. Nobody's gone down yet. The Rift Herald got a couple of plates but didn't take the tower. While that's going on, Larssen's in the mid lane.
Yeah, that's the thing, and they just put in the wave there. They know they're expending a lot of resources from Mad Lions with the double TP to come in. So Rogue, they decide to call off the play, and they're actually not completely done yet. Trymbi has the quickness, is in a ward. He's in a bush with no vision here.
There's no support from anybody else. That's the quickness, the knock-up, the charm. Flash away from Carzzy, he's already taken down. Next on the list is Kaiser, ultimate available to him. Throws that out underneath the tower. Trymbi tanks 2, backs away. Odo's got that grey health to play with. Looking for the Devour. Waddle, 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 gobble, gobble, gobble. Lick him and stick him back to the fountain. Odo picks up the 3rd kill for Rogue.
I have absolutely no idea what that just was, but they are picking up the plates while they still can. 30 seconds until they fall off, so they stick around for the extended play. As soon as Larssen put the pressure in the mid lane, where he was getting resources and plates for himself, Mad Lions sound the alarm. We need to stop him. And because they put so many members immediately down back towards the mid lane, back towards the bottom lane, it left Carzzy and Kaiser open as a point of attack, and Rogue, they equalized on it.
Man, it's 3,500 gold up. Rogue are now taking some plates. Inspired starts the fight here on Elyoya. Here comes Odo to save the day. Still trying to chase. Kaiser has jumped in as well. No further follow-up secure, but Mad Lions, they started off that fight. The teleport was committed by Humanoid, and it ultimately gets punished. Trymbi, no quickness, no flash. No battle dodge just yet, and Mad are being pushed back. It is a strong, strong advantage. The Dragon has just spawned. It looks like Rogue will be able to even that one out. They are in control at 15 minutes.
Once again, they are, and I don't even think they need to call hands down for this one. I think they just straight up start this one. But it seems like they're still a bit too hesitant to get this one done. They want to go for the towers first. There is no tower taken as of right now. And with the priority, with the resets that's coming through from Mad, Rogue, they're going to be able to pick up the first turret for themselves.
I mean, look at the item disparity on the bottom of the screen. You know, 4 mythics already. Armut jumps onto Odo underneath the tower, uses the hammer to knock him backwards. Odo jumps forward, gets the tongue lash out as well, and Tahm will be able to get a lot of damage. Not enough for the kill just yet until finally it goes down. Inspired is the next target. Elyoya chomps him down, hits him with that pillar. That's the first kill for Mad. They've lost themselves the top tower. They're about to lose this bottom tower. And Rogue are now bullying Mad Lions back into their jungle.
Yeah, they're not completely done with this one either. It looks like they want to go for Skirmish and Humanoid.
All right, Humanoid's got the ultimate available to him. It's ticking away onto Hansama, who's used the rend already. Larssen threw out the culling. And it is just it feels like an elegant series of plays here from Rogue. It's been, you know, you can behold it, you can witness it, you can savor it.
You can, and then sometimes there's something stuck in your food and it is an Inspired that died while you were committing a play for the bot side. But outside of that, yes, I'll give it to you. You can definitely see that Rogue, they're very calculated, they're very meticulous about how they play. Put Handsome up towards the top side, moving into the mid lane. Now we have priority here while we go for bot side play.
And Guldborg, you called it as well. The fact that Rogue made that move first, also they had Rift Herald, so then an additional tool to play with, gave them this very large advantage, and we're beyond the 3,000 gold terror window. That's what I'm going to call it, that we talked about. Mad Lions wants time. They need items. They want some team fights. They may get themselves one. No teleports available. Actually, this may just be another dragon going the way of Mad. Rogue can pick to fight on Soul Point when they've got an even larger advantage.
Yeah, in general, ever since the changes came through with the turrets, with the gold, how snowbally this meta can be, Drake aren't really seen as a win condition that often, especially because there is the chance that you're going to roll Cloud Drake, and it's not helping out too many compositions. So you go for the Rift Herald, where you can get yourself the gold in the outer turrets. Then if the game does come to a late game, well, if you're ahead by the gold, you should, realistically speaking, be able to get the rest of the objectives again then. Yeah. And yes, the game will be longer, but you will have to lead them.
Yeah, and that's definitely Rogue's sort of approach to this game. 17 minutes in just a few minutes' time, they've ballooned that advantage even further. And they're going to look to take down the second tower here. The minion wave is being pushed in. Inspired is shadowing this duo as Larssen is clearing out some vision behind the river. Trymbi, no flash available to him, gets headbutted backwards. Inspired's jumping forward. The quickness comes out, and that's a lot of damage. Fate's call, that's going to be shot backwards, and in fact, Kalista and Summer is taken down. Mad Lions get the tower, but they lose their AD. Carzzy not going to be able to find the kill with that piercing arrow. Elyoya pushes forward. Mad, they're not done yet.
And that's super overzealous as well. Even with the Fate's call, you should never let hands be picked up in that position. Odo should be able to go out of this one, but with the priority and with the tempo now on Matt's side, they are the one responding in turrets. They're going to be the one pushing in mid lane now. They're going to be setting up the favorable vision, and they're going to crawl their way a bit back into the game. Not to the point we've won yet, but to the point where they remain competitive, which is what you need when you have a team composition that's scaling a bit more.
Yeah, but the thing is, while on numerics and statistics it may be competitive, remember your own quote. Mad Lions are a team that in a 5,000 or 10,000 gold deficit can still curate team fights that are advantages, for them. It's going to be very difficult, of course, no doubt about it, but they do have that ability on their players, and it's going to be called upon today. Humanoid's going to step forward, not get the gravity field down now, but I do think once we take a look at the scoreboard just again, Carzzy's down significantly on the CS front to Hun Summer, but it is somewhat balanced out. One top advantage from Armut.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also just in terms of how the map state is right now, and in terms of the team composition we have on the side of Rogue, I'm surprised we haven't seen them go for an attack with Inspired yet, who has finished up the Hectic rocket build, who does have the Sork boots, while there's no magic resist on the side of Mad Lions right now. So skirmish around the Diana is close to true damage, really, with how much of that damage is going to come through when they haven't built anything yet.
Do you think it's fair to say that their focus has been on the sort of the towers or the Rift Herald more so than anything else?
Yes, it definitely has, and I also think the first Rift Herald didn't work out as they wanted, just because you saw that they got that Rift Herald down in the nick of time. It already started glowing in Inspired's inventory, and the second one as well. So there is definitely a Rogue here that wants to be less kill heavy, more control rather instead. But I'm still sure that we're going to see an explosion come from them very soon.
I mean, 2 minutes, 40 seconds until the Infernal Drake spawns. Baron will be up in a minute's time. And both teams just contesting the vision. Every time I look at the minimap, there's so many wards being pushed through the river. And right now it's Mad Lions that are on the push. We talked a little bit about how they kind of had the play. The ball was in their court. Hun Summer was just taken out inside their jungle. He has completed his Hurricane though, so please do keep that in mind. His Larssen and Inspired may be a target here for the Mad Lions.
One of the huge things for Rogue is they need backline access, so Inspired on this flank could be absolutely pivotal.
Oh, sidesteps the laser beam. Kaiser holds on to the engage for now. Here comes Odo with an Abyssal Voyage. Inspired has used the stopwatch, so that's not going to be available if further pressure plays out, but this is good for Mad. They are buying time, they are stalling, but they are still very far behind. Inspired's got that flash available to him. Odoamne, Abyssal Voyage forward. Carzzy tries to chunk out what he can, and not going to be enough. While that was going on, Larssen backed, picked himself up an Essence Reaver and TP to the mid lane.
Yes, but a 4K gold lead, does it feel like you're seeing that when you're watching Rogue? Because they are the one who's being pushed back themselves. That is the ground we're also talking about that Matt are able to play around with. Because as Rogue, you need an instantaneous engage immediately. On the side of Mad Lions, though, they benefit of having to wait around. They benefit when you can poke with the Varus, when you can create space with the Viktor lasers, with the gravity field to stop them from coming into you. So now with the stopwatch burned as well from Inspired, if he wants to throw himself at them, that's going to be more dangerous now.
Yeah, it really will. We'll see if he manages to get in his hands on that Hourglass relatively soon or replaces it. Looking at stopwatches as well, Humanoid's got his hands on one. I wonder whether or not Carzzy would feel the pressure or Armut. If they survive that burst damage and buy the time, that's going to allow them longer team fights. 40 seconds to Infernal. The Rift Herald was summoned in the base. Inspired and Rogue didn't have a great opportunity. But this engage here onto Armut will force the flash immediately, and this should just be a relatively easy kill. Armut survives very long, in fact, and shows you what he can do with that Eclipse.
But they're so smart about it, and Trevor, because you said, all right, 40 seconds to Infernal Drake, normal teams will reset, and they just catch Mad Lions in the reset there is to come.
Wow, there's a culling now tagging Elyoya, also hitting Humanoid, and second time this game, a reset sort of swap play around the Rift Herald has allowed Rogue to get an advantage. 5 kills, 4,000 gold the lead. 10 seconds before Armut spawns. He's got teleport available to him. Dragon may still be alive, and there's no quickness from Trymbi.
Remember, extended team fight for Mad Lions, the benefit of that, they need to poke. Rogue, they want to engage on someone immediately.
They do engage, and Spite gets knocked away. The Protobelt was already used. There goes the flash as well. This is the third Dragon. 4 Mad Lions. Do Rogue fancy another go? No! That's 3 for Mad. That is that late game option, and this game is just very, very weirdly balanced right now.
And in Infernal Drake is Rogue's biggest nightmare. When you look at the composition you have on the side of Mad, Varus poke with Infernal, the Jayce with Infernal, and now these items are starting to come through from the side of Mad Lions as well. They're not very far from their spikes as we're talking about. And Rogue, they've been very hesitant. We see some of their intelligence in some of the plays that we saw up towards the top side, catching Armut on a reset timer, down towards the bottom where we did get the 2v2 kill with Hands and then Inspire coming in to help. But outside of that, it hasn't really been too action-packed this early game.
No, it's been moments of intensity. And the thing I'm wondering now is, did Rogue pick a composition that is too difficult to execute? Counterpoint, did Mad Lions put a team composition that sort of counters Rogue? Because they may only get one more big team fight unless they can make magic.
That's the thing, and you know, I've already talking about this meta. It's a meta that rewards proactivity. Rogue with this composition, they have the tools to be proactive. But Mad Lions, we've seen what they do. They've been so respectful towards the engage. They've allowed themselves to fall behind. Not even neutralize, because they did go down in deficits.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
They actually went behind, so they took 1 step back, so they now can take 2 steps forward.
Oh man, and I think there's that first Dragon and now the Dragon stacking really could come back to bite Rogue. Remember, they had the opportunity to pick up, I think, the second Drake of the game. Elected to play for towers instead. Now Armut will get jumped on. Once again, no flash available to him. He's going to be able to use that hammer. Inspired throws out the ultimate and gets the first kill of the game. Okay, let's start talking a little bit about theory here, right? Because it's been relatively clear that when Mad are grouped up, Rogue just don't want to fight, and we've exhausted why. But how should either Rogue or Mad Lions sort of set up for this next Dragon?
For Mad Lions, it's all about being first on the objective, because if you are the one that can peel off it, still come to poke through when they're coming to face check you, that's the ideal moment. But even if Rogue is the team that's on the objective first, it's still ideal for Mad Lions because they can poke you while you're stuck in a pit. So I will say the situation will favor Mad Lions a little bit, but on the side of Rogue, you can see the Summoner spell. Inspired will have his flash up, and Summer will have the tools to come in with a flank, and that's what you need. A flank needs to come through from the side of Rogue when they go against Mad Lions at that Drake, because if they all come from one direction, it'll be too easy for Mad Lions to disengage and deal with.
Yeah, the tools in the kit. We've already seen that. You mentioned it, the previous Dragon. Rogue were on it, and they just got pushed away, even with a numbers advantage. Now, admittedly, 8 or 9 seconds were left before Armut spawned. So we'll take stock of the game at 25 minutes. 6 kills to 2. Mad Lions have got 3 dragons to 0 for Rogue. And despite that 6,000 gold lead, it feels to me like it's Mad Lions in control. They seem to be dictating at least the bigger picture of the game, but it is Rogue that are making more plays more often.
Yeah, you can definitely see how much of the map they own as well. This is still very much Rogue that's pushing it forward, but at the same time, I want you to acknowledge that is Mad Lions handshaking that. Armut has set up a freeze for himself towards the bottom side of the map because that's not going to be a point of attack yet. They'll need the priority when Drake spawns, not sooner.
1 minute, and the third item picked up here for Hansama. He's got himself the Bloodthirster. Hourglass was completed for Inspired. You're a mana for Armut to complement the Eclipse, still waiting for that upgrade on Carzzy. And the vision that has been set up from Rogue, I think the observers are toggling through it, will give information. Mad are now starting to challenge it. 1 minute until the dragon spawns, and this could be so huge for Rogue's chances at winning the game.
I want to burst your bubble though. There's a chance Mad Lions will just disengage of it because they have 3 Drakes. They have the scaling game. They don't have to take this fight if they're not feeling comfortable.
Dude,
and that is something you have to remember.
You are such a good grounding force, because I get bought into the hype and the excitement, and I want to live in the world where they're just going to fight. But yes, you're probably right. If Mad Lions concede the dragon, if it's not optimal, they get what they need, time. That gold lead, though, is still 6,000. Trymbi with flash, with quickness. Odoamne with Abyssal Voyage. We're setting ourselves up for that fight. The handshake be damned. Knockup goes on to Odo. Trymbi's looking for the flank that Guldborg talked about. Grey health, thick skin cannot even be popped. That's the front line for Rogue. Down. Mad Lions just waltz into the river, get themselves some fish for dinner, look for the soul as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, but they're still out on the flank, but they're spotted out now, so they're going to be turned on.
Oh, that shock blast was gigantic. Inspired and Trymbi making their way out. Larssen forced to flash, but not after, losing 50% of his HP. Fate's call from Hansama sends Trymbi forward. Still has that quickness available to him. Inspired still has the ultimate, but it is going to be effectively 3 versus 5. Larssen can't TP in. The Dragon's down to 1,700. The engage catches 3. That's gigantic, but there's not enough follow-up. There's not enough damage. The Dragon is secured by Mad Lions. They get the soul. They get themselves another kill. And despite Larssen picking up 1 after the TP, it is Mad Lions in a gold deficit, a kill deficit, a tower deficit that gets the soul.
That is just crazy. And not only that, they should be able to pick up this team fight afterwards, go for the Baron as well. And while Odo is doing his best at keeping them in bay, it's just not enough. Elyoya is still alive, Infernal Drake, and they should be able to go for Baron Nashor.
Oh man, what an interesting game. And I think for Rogue sitting at the top of the table, the draft that they've put together with this Tahm Kench top, it hasn't yet shown me how it should execute, but I think more credit to Mad Lions for how they played their fights.
How nice of a fresh breath of air is this to see Mad Lions like this again? Because usually the words I would have described them after seeing them the past 2 weeks would be disjointed, uncoordinated, and unreliable in the late game. This time around, that is none of that. They are just clinically picking them apart with their poke composition and taking care of the objective game with the Dragons.
And really, really clean play around the soul, despite the threat. 3v5 simply not enough, and allowed Elyoya to pick up the dragon. Inspired jumps in just a little late. I didn't realize quite how close that actually was in the end. For Mad Lions, let's now not discount the fact that they are still in the gold deficit, but with the soul, with the Baron, and with Armut landing poke after poke after poke, that is what has forced Rogue away.
I'd like you to introduce you to Invisible Gold, Trevor, the bunch of stats that are not collected from the Infernal Drake and the soul that's coming through with that extra amount of damage that we have here. So while they are pushing down to top side, Rogue, they're doing their best to keep the mid lane pushed in, but this is a Baron off team. They are going to be having the tempo on their side from Mad Lions.
Yeah, Mad Lions looking towards the inhibitor turret, and so important for Mad to pick up as many wins as they can, especially against the likes of G2, Fnatic Misfits, who they play next week, Rogue today. Higher placements in the summer regular season gives you more championship points, and that is so important 4 seeding. Mad Lions, may they push for the final win right now. They've got Baron empowered minions. They've taken down the front line. They've got several ultimates still to play with. Nexus Turret's going to be the focus. They may just be done with this. Another wave. Conga lines its way forward. Trymbi's coming in from behind. The ultimate's available to him. Inspired is pushed back. Cannot use that Moonfall. Finally does, but Humanoid hourglasses all of it in the Chaos Storm. Forces Inspired away. Actually picks up the kill on the Fountain Steps. Mad Lions take down Rogue.
Just like that, it's done. Just like that. In a game that had been in Rogue control outside of Dragons the entire time, and Mad Lions, the team with the objective control around the Drakes. I was saying, yeah, you know what, the first 2 Drakes, it's not going to matter too much because the gold lead was all the time in Rogue's favor. They should be the team who should get the setup. But it never felt like that. Mad Lions with their comp played it almost to perfection with how well they played around the spacing with the ground from the abilities and just got the objective, got the team fight, got the Baron, and then they just end the game by running down top.
Such an interesting game to watch and to talk about because all of the big advantages that Rogue set up came from those clever back timing and sort of lane swaps, how it felt to me. It allowed them to punish Mad Lions. So while Mad Lions were playing very defensive and respectful, it also meant they conceded those leads. But I do think, a lot of discussion will happen around the draft this game and the draft difference, the draft gap, the ceiling that Mad Lions had so clearly visible as the game played out. And I did appreciate how, you know, we set that window of like, hey, 3K might be it. It actually didn't matter. It was 6K at one point, and Mad was just able to use their comp well.
Yeah, they did it so insanely well, and it's also about the fact that a lot of the times in this meta, when you see teams with a scaling team composition, they'll just falter because that climbing back from that gold lead is not easy. But the respect we saw from Mad Lions today, how well they held onto their own win condition and how they wanted to play that game, you gotta give them a huge amount of credit for that.
And some small mistakes from Rogue, you know, I mean, Inspired got caught out in his jungle. I think Hansama got caught out in Mad Lions' jungle. So those small things bought enough time for Mad Lions to pick up the win. Your nominees for Key Up Player of the Game at LEC on Twitter: Armut, Elyoya, and Carzzy. Very, very interesting game. I'm looking forward to seeing what fans at home think about it. But for Mad Lions, I do think next weekend, looking at how they compete against all of the teams above them in the standings and what form they're going to bring into playoffs, that is what my expectations are looking at.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We talked a bit about the schedule, the setup for them. It's going to be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and really, really will. And of course, this was a super, super fun game to cast. It's the last of us for the day. A little bit later, we'll see that match of the week, G2 versus Misfits. You care to give a prediction?
G2.
G2, he calls it. We'll soon hear more about Mad's win from the analyst desk as they remain at the top of the LEC as we go into Super Week with a massive win.
Danger.
Saxophone.
Welcome back from the break as Medline revive the memory of Spring Finals and take down Rogue, the first place team in the LEC. Humanoid, thank you so much for joining me. How important is it for you and Medlions to take this victory from Rogue today?
Well, it's pretty important since Rogue is probably one of the best teams in the league right now, and we lost to them last time. So knowing that we can beat them again, even this split, is a huge confidence boost going into playoffs. So yeah, it would be really bad if we lost to them 0-2 before going into playoffs against them.
And it was quite interesting because Rogue is known for their lane dominance, and today they had an insane goal difference in 15 minutes. I think it was about 4K. Can you tell me about how Medlions actually tried to play around their comp, tried to play slow and calculated, and even take the Dragon Soul in the end?
Yeah, I think with our comp, once we got, I think, 2 Drakes in the mid game, it's pretty easy for us to play. Even though we are behind, once we group with our comp, it's very hard for enemies to play, since we can just Trundle pillar and someone will just die. So we can just play around Drakes, and I think they had to play for Drakes more because I don't think they can win without focusing on the Drakes. So I think it was pretty easy game for us from that point.
What do you think happened today in order for Medlions to take this comeback? Was it the comp difference? Was it Medlions actually over-delivering today? Was it like purely execution? What do you think happened?
I mean, I think it came down to mainly execution in the mid game. I think they were for sure in a winning position, but yeah, we have a long-range team comp, and they don't really have that much engage, so it's still pretty hard for them to play. And Rogue usually plays for late game team fights. They don't really play for like side laning too much. So I think our comp play to our strengths and play for enemies' weaknesses as well. And yeah, if you're even with this comp, then it's pretty free win.
And speaking of execution, we did witness just high the ceiling of this Medline team is today. What do you personally or Medline as a team want to work on between now and the playoffs?
I think right now we are just focusing to getting to our previous level, since I think we took the start of the season a bit more lightly, and we started playing a lot more in the past few weeks. So we are slowly getting there, and I think right now we are pretty close to like our top peak performance, you know. And so we just need like 1 or 2 more weeks, and we will be back in our playoffs from last split.
Like, it could be team synergy, and some Medline players have gone on interviews to say that perhaps, especially in the beginning of the season, they did not find League of Legends as fun, and motivation is of course important in the game. What is your personal sentiment in this subject, if I may ask?
I think for sure for me, I didn't like playing the game for sure at the start. I didn't even play solo queue most of the times, since yeah, we had like 1 week break after MSI. So I've been playing the game for almost half a year straight with no breaks. And it's really hard for me to actually find enjoyment from just playing the game for so long. And so that's why I didn't really play that much. And now I think I'm just starting to play a bit more, and it's becoming a bit fun again. Not too much fun, but yeah, it's not the worst.
Hey, you're still giving us a very enjoyable matches on the LEC stage, which I do appreciate. One last quick question. I asked this question a few weeks before about a quick update. Which stream teams in the LEC are making it to Worlds in your prediction?
I would say Rogue, us, and I think G2. G2 is probably gonna make it, yeah. I would count Fnatic out, but anything can happen, you know.
Oh, that is certainly spicy. We'll certainly look forward to that. But thank you so much for this interview, Humanoid, and best of luck for the rest of the LEC.
Thank you.
And I'll hand it over to Dracos and Kadril for the post-match breakdown.
Thank you very much, Ashley and Humanoid. Of course, it's no matter who you answer in the who's going to make it to Worlds question, it's always a little bit dramatic because one of the top 4 is getting cut out. But of course, focusing back on the game that we just witnessed, Caedrel and I are going to take a look at what went wrong for Rogue and what was seemingly a very positive early game.
It was a really big throw, and it all came down to just a chain series of events. We've got the first clip here, which actually started the snowball effect. And now what happened here was a little bit of context. I'll bring up the minimap, is that Mad Lions had full control of the top side. What they basically did was they pushed out top, and they were actually pressuring the tower. They got a little bit of vision. But Armut, you saw there, cancelled his recall. He stayed on the map. His whole team is in base. You can see them all around here. His whole team's in base. He's greedy with what he's doing right now. So let's play the clip. What's he going to do? He's going to wait for the next wave to come in. Okay, that's fine. I mean, Drake's spawning soon, but look at the map, right? Hans and Trymbi are actually collapsing on him. What they were originally doing was they were running down towards Drake. Drake is spawning in around 30 seconds, so they wanted to get down to here, make sure they have the vision. It's third Drake. If they lose this, it's Infernal Soul points. So, is Armut inting? Yeah, you could say he's definitely making a mistake here, but let's just keep our eyes on what happens. So they get Armut's flash, Trymbi uses ult, Hans uses ult, and they do manage to kill Armut. That's great, but let's watch what happens next.
Ooh, going through, taking the death. From there, it's probably, I mean, Caedrel, I have a sneaking suspicion I know where this is going, given how this game ended. That looks like maybe a free Drake going over to the side of Mad Lions.
Exactly. This is all about tempo. So Hans and Trymbi had actually got tempo on top, right? They pushed out top and they were going to move to Drake, but the biggest mistake that they made, well, it wasn't even a mistake. It was a good opportunity to get that kill onto Armut. He was a free kill, but they invested 2 ultimates to do it. So now when you actually fast forward 20 seconds later when you move towards the Dragon, Hans can't walk into the pit because they have no ults. Yes, it's a 5v4, but Armut's up soon with TP. So as they actually tried to contest, they realized they don't have vision around the Dragon. The reason they don't have vision around the Dragon is because they went for that top play. If they just ran straight down to bot and set up first, then this Dragon would be pretty free for them because Armut would have to base and run to the actual Dragon itself, and Rogue would be there first to set up before the Mad Lions can get there.
And sadly, as we watch the rest of this game, this just continues to be a trend where seemingly positive plays for Rogue end up turning against them. And if there's anything that we learned from Babus last week, it's that sometimes there is such a thing as a good death.
That was a good death, ironically, you know. This is crazy because Rogue had a 4,000 gold lead at 15 minutes. Yes, they were dropping dragons, but they're ahead. But if your resources spread thin and you can't contest these neutrals on time, setup is way more important. This is a good definition of having setup over having a gold lead. So we'll look at the next clip. Now, the next clip is not as important, but it does set the point that Armut is getting greedy. It's a big mistake here from Mad Lions. It's something they need to review in this game for sure when they get back to the house, because Armut's just over-pushing sides. Look at this. Way too greedy. I'll pause it even and just bring up the minimap. You can see he has absolutely no vision on the map whatsoever, but he's greedy to push out the next wave. His whole team's topside trying to get some Baron vision. So as you play it, he's no flash. Hans and Trymbi killed him earlier on top wave, and they got his flash, so he is a free kill. Inspired comes down. They have control over Baron, so Mad Lions can't trade off for a Baron if they go for this bot play. They get a kill. What does that inevitably lead to? Well, Rogue get a bot tier 2. Okay, so they get a kill, they get a bot tier 2, they got a kill earlier. They're getting gold, but they're not keeping control. They're losing control. This is the biggest problem that they have. So then, when we get to the 4th Dragon, which is one that they actually didn't decide to fight, that's where the nail in the coffin comes in, because you drop the ball for 1 split second here, and everything falls apart. Because now Rogue do have control. They are ahead in the game, but if you play it out, one mistake can mean that they actually lose the fight. So Odoamne oversteps here. They're trying to move to the Dragon. He oversteps, he gets comboed, and he dies. You can see the whole team split up. Inspired's going towards bot wave. Larssen and Hans are there, yes, but Trymbi was going for deep wards. Now, you've made one mistake. You had a gold lead. You had kills across the side lanes. You had a winning side layer against Jayce, but now you're 5v4. And now the enemy team's on Infernal Soul point. They've been trading all this gold for neutral objectives, and you've been going for all this gold. But now this one mistake has made it so you lose the fight because you're at a numbers disadvantage. Now, once you've lost the fight, you've lost the Infernal Soul. And as the clip plays out, after losing the fight and the Infernal Soul, they lose the Baron. So you've just lost all the control you had in the game from good plays that you were making just because of the snowball effect.
And that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And of course, kind of the power of dragons. We've seen so many teams across the world deprioritize them because they don't give as much immediate gold. They don't give items. They don't make your characters feel as powerful. But when it comes down to giving them away so consistently and eventually getting that dragon soul, obviously it pays off dividends for Mad because they were just consistently the team there first when it came to setting up for the objectives.
Exactly. So having a good early game is great. Winning your lanes, perfect. Getting the early towers and getting the gold leads is one thing. But having control in the mid game is way more valuable than gold leads. You can take the Misfits G2 game, for example. 10k gold down, Mountain Soul down. They got to Elder first. They had the setup. G2 were late to the play. They lose Elder Dragon. Game's over. Exact same thing kind of happened here. Rogue had the lead. They dropped the ball for 1 second.
Setup is king. And we said it once, we'll say it again. A good death, certainly looking good for Armut, as he is going to be your key player of the game. Overall, I was very focused on the desk because we were grabbing replays, but at the end of the day, if Mad Lions are winning a game, he's getting caught. It is leading to the Drakes.
Yeah.
Indirectly gets credit for those plays.
Good deaths. The second one, not so much because he lost his tower and had no flash anyway, but it didn't lead to much other than a tower and Odoamne getting ahead, so that means that Jayce inherently loses side lane. But the first one was a bait, and it made it so they got the third dragon, so it made it so they would get the Infernal Soul.
Against the 5-head master himself, Odoamne, Armut pulls off the biggest Blaine play. Of course, there's more League of Legends coming up in Week 7, and the action continues with Fnatic versus SK Gaming in just a few minutes.